Super. Hey, we've been talking today quite a lot about data strategy. We have touched base a bit on AI, but with you, Tony, we will be talking about the AI, and you haven't been able to follow the discussion that well. But the data foundation has been mentioned many times that it's critical, and the data quality in order to drive AI going further. And truly, I believe that AI, and especially generative AI, will change everybody's life. And companies should start experimenting with the data or with the AI today, especially because of tomorrow's business, because it's gonna change the business a lot. But hey, 1 year ago in this event, Tony, we didn't talk anything about generative AI, but as an AI and data science professional, do you truly think that AI is here and now?
Yes, thanks. I mean, I can believe that last year, generative AI at least wasn't such the topic that it is now. And I think that absolutely AI is here. But I do think that AI has been here for many, many years. But what's new now is exactly this, generative language models, okay? So what's new is the accessibility and the quality of these generative language models. But let's be clear and break that down a little bit, okay? So language models, we're talking about models that understand the semantics of text, right? Which is great. You can get fast answers to many questions that way. Not just questions about what was on the internet 2 years ago, by the way, because with some customization, you can also answer questions about your own operations, your own business, and your own customers. This can increase the productivity, of course, of many business processes and communications, and the possibilities do seem endless. But remember, not every question is a language question or has language at its core. So, for example, if you want to predict the cost of something, then you should have more faith in a numerical model, which gives you something like a probability per euro rather than some words, okay? The other part, generative, I mean, that's key. So generative, we're not just classifying language data anymore. We're not just classifying text. We're actually producing it. These models can generate human text. But we have to remember that not every language problem is solved by giving us something else to read, okay? So for example, if you wanted to search through a mountain of documentation and find all those little bits of text that seem to be talking about holidays, right? You would need a language model, but there's nothing generative about it. The end game here would be a label, holiday or not, right? And that label isn't read by a human, it's used by an IT process to sort documents into different folders, for example. So yes, I am excited by these generative language models and how they can impact on productivity. But I'm also, if not more excited, about how these will raise awareness of the different types of AI out there and when each one would win or lose.
Yeah, so Tony, I fully agree that they will increase the productivity, the generative AI will increase the productivity. But would you agree that all of the companies, they should start experimenting with AI today in order to keep up with the curve?
Right, yeah, I love it. I love to hear when people talk about experimenting, and yes, I think that's a good idea. But when you say keeping up with the curve, we need to be clear on that. So you seem to be predicting a curve of productivity, this sort of explosion of things getting easier or faster or more efficient with generative language models. But there's another curve, which I think Panu already referred to, this hype curve, which we should keep in the back of our minds at the very least. This is a curve which I don't think anybody wants to follow, but it's almost inevitable. We have to be careful not to follow this curve. This hype curve is probably not new to anybody, and AI has definitely suffered from this hype curve in the last sort of 5 to 10 year period, meaning that the expectations are so high that drives failure. We get all these proof of concepts which go nowhere. Time wasted, money wasted, stress wasted on those. Now the good news is we know what went wrong in the past, and now we can largely skip these old mistakes so that our experiments keep us on this productivity curve and not the hype curve. Let me give you a few examples of the mistakes. And there's many, but I'm just trying to break them down here. One, I would call pseudoscience. And this is where experts in a business or even BI analysts are in charge of building and experimenting with AI models, but maybe without the depth of understanding needed to avoid inconclusive or misleading results. Now, the opposite of that is what you could call the basement nerd effect, where you've got data scientists creating AI without building in that domain knowledge and the feedback that you get from actually talking to the professionals in the field. And then you've got the PowerPoint effect. This is where POCs could have been doomed from the start, never to create any value, never to go beyond the PowerPoints in the boardrooms because the data platforms that were necessary for production were not there, or they weren't built to support the AI use cases, or the goals are not aligned between the different teams in IT and business that depend upon this thing to fly, or the compliance to GDPR and now this responsible AI policy thing. It's been left as let's look at that later. So we learn from those mistakes. And all of these, you could say, are caused by the fourth thing, which is skipping the business case. And actually, data science is a really important tool for building a business case around an AI solution, because data science is there to answer these questions like what KPIs are we affecting, what do we expect out of this, how will we know if AI is creating the value, what AI method performs best. This is where data science fits into the business case.
So what do you mean that what AI method is the best? So I'm using generative AI every day to increase my productivity, and I think that ChatGPT is great.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad to hear it. I mean, I think it's great, and I'm glad to hear that you're getting value out of it. I guess that's because, or hopefully, you've done some kind of an experimentation and hopefully a data-driven discovery phase. Okay. Let's take an example. I mean, let's say you've got thousands of customers sending you emails and they're stored in your CRM system, right? There's an opportunity, language in the database, right? Now you may set up a chat window so that you can give GPT each email and ask the question, should I reply to this email? Yes or no? Will it be valuable if I reply to this email? Yes or no? Okay, and that might work. So you might end up with some yeses and some nos, but then you think, hang on, let's remove the middleman. This is so cumbersome. You might have, instead of a chat window, some kind of a batch job, using the same model in the background, but then forwarding all the yes emails to a priority queue. Okay, that sounds good. But what's happening here is a neural network is inferring the value of replying to an email. And it's doing that using human-like decision-making capabilities that have emerged from reading the internet. Okay. Now, it's been reading billions of human texts, almost all of which are not your customers talking about your products or your services. Okay. So then you might think, well, we have thousands of anonymized emails in a database, and we know which ones we're worth replying to and which ones we're not. So let's train our own neural network to classify all future emails as a number 1 means yeah, reply. Number 0 means nah, there's no need. Now, you might find that this classifier has more impact on the KPI that you're trying to affect than the GPT machine did. You might. Now, what your classifier is doing is it's turning each email into a vector of numbers. Okay, so then you bring in a data scientist, say, give it more numbers, because this is your customer. You're the one who knows the number of interactions with your website that this customer has. You're the one who knows the NPS score for this customer. So the data scientist can build all this stuff in and enrich the classifier. You might end up with a new classifier that seems to be even better for that KPI, or it might be simpler. And then you think, well, actually, a data scientist at that stage does what's called an explainability analysis, right? It's part of the responsible AI practices. But what they're doing there is they're saying, well, okay, for these emails that it says, yes, it's worth replying to this email, why does the model think that? And what can come out of that is insights like, well, here are the more important data points. It could be that it's demographics about the customer or the buying history of this customer. It could be nothing to do with the email. So you might decide to remove the emails altogether. And then you end up with some demographics, and then you might think, well, let's remove the classifier. We can have a threshold. We can have an if-else thing. So what I'm trying to say here is the best tool for the job is the simplest method that impacts on the KPI the most, right? But more to the point, what works best has to be discovered by data science. And just how simple it is actually comes down to the data. So the data availability and the data management. I know what you're thinking. GPT is pre-trained, so we should cash in on this. All kinds of data has already gone into this model. Let's see what value we can get out of that. And I do agree. But I predict from experience that if there's any way you can find to educate a pre-trained model on your own data, then that will give you a competitive edge.
So, okay, I hear your point. You say that there's a clear value with the traditional AI and also with the generative AI. And you also talk about integrating your corporate data with the generative AI. But it sounds like you're a bit hesitant about using generative AI models. So are you scared? Are you like, because even on an AI safety summit earlier this year, they declared that AI poses a catastrophic risk to the humanity. So I don't believe in stopping the development of AI. We should continue that. But I'm just wondering, is this like real hype or overreaction when they are like saying that we should stop the development and it's like getting out of control?
Yeah. I mean, I can see how taking this scientific approach, it might look like fear of the new AI. I wouldn't hesitate to use the new AI. And the reason I'm not scared is because the dangers of AI are not new. They've been known for a long time. I mean, what is new is the scale of use cases where you have a human-like output. And it means that the same risks are there, but the impact is a lot bigger, which just means that the mitigations need to be taken a lot more seriously. Now, the good news is they're actually quite fun, and we do have tools that can help us. So at the people level, it's like involving the key roles from different parts of an organization in actually building these AI models and designing and maintaining that solution. At the process level, I mean, it's adopting self-assessment tools, such as we've got support from EU-level entities like Alt-I, or then in Finland, we've got the community Finnish AI region. And then at the technical level, we don't need to go into the details now, but there are tools that have come out of this hype in the past to solve problems like this. I mean, you might have heard of ML Ops. It's all about making it easier to maintain, to learn from, and to change things in response to measurements of real things like bias or the explainability that I mentioned before.
Okay, so there has been a lot of discussion about AI risking jobs. So I've been saying for a year now that AI ain't gonna take your job, but the person who is using AI will take your job. So what do you think about this? So what is truly like the productivity gain?
Yeah, I think that summarizes it well. I have the same view that people who use AI, they'll be really valuable. I think that replacing jobs has been a concern for a long time. And now that AI talks like a person, the risk seems all that more real. But so far, when we talk about these large language models, I see them being used in three ways. Firstly, retrieving information from mountains of documentation. Secondly, processing text or human information. It could be translating from one language to another or categorization of that language. And then thirdly, using natural languages to interface with applications. This is the co-pilot approach. We'll come back to that. But the first two, the first one, retrieving documentation or information from mountains of documents. I don't think that's anybody's job. I think it's everybody's headache, and the more automation, the better. The second one, a bit more sensitive. So processing information. People have been asking, well, if Google Translate can translate this document, why do I need a translator? Or if this recommendation engine can match a customer to a product, why do I need salespeople? But what we've seen and what we've learned is that the human expertise is needed to set up and to train and to validate these systems. And that is not a one-off job. You don't do that and then start getting unemployment benefits. It's something to keep this AI machine alive. It's something that needs that human in the loop all the time. And in return, we see the same humans reaping the rewards through things like smart prioritization and decision support, which is real. Now, the third category is interesting. This is new, I think. This is the new one, the co-pilot approach. I can only speak as a programmer, which I am, and I'm interested in how co-pilots can help me to write code. Now, the way I see it, we are giving peer review culture a second chance. So in every software team that I've been in before, we all agreed that we don't do enough code reviews. And then we all continued as we were without doing enough code reviews, right? It's just not really appealing. But I think what we'll start to see now is that programmers engage with co-pilots as a peer. And they do so because you get fast feedback and because it's kind of fun to spar with a robot instead of our peers and to argue with a robot instead of our peers because we love each other too much. So yeah, speaking as a data scientist consultant, if that means that I spend less time actually writing code, that's only good because I can spend more time informing business cases or risk assessments or talking to the people to get the domain knowledge to make things relevant. So, yes.
So, as an AI expert, you agree that AI is here and now, and we all should start experimenting with it, but there are some things we need to consider. So, AI is a lot more than like generative AI, and there's a lot more than like only large language models. But good quality data is the key in order to drive like true value from the AI, just like discussed and heard that the data quality is in the core. So the risks of AI are real, but we should also take the learnings from the past that we have seen the risk also earlier, and AI will truly improve the productivity. So would you like think that this is a summary of your thinking?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, if I had to emphasize just one point, it's the thing about the data, the quality and availability of the data. And that's because it's data science, therefore the data, which is needed for the other things, like choosing the right tool for the job, assessing risks, implementing mitigations, responsible AI. This is data-driven stuff as well.
Okay, so in a summary, what's next? So the company should start experimenting with AI right now, but they should do it with a partner who knows the data-first approach in order to find the right data, how to build the right methods on top of their data. And there is a hype curve, as we heard from the Musti and Miri as well, but we should like take the learnings from the past, not to go with the hype curve. And the ones who will truly drive the competitive advantage are the ones who understand from the past mistakes what they've done wrong and what others have done wrong. And they explore with the new technologies and build the data science and data expertise across the organization. So would this summarize your thinking?
Yep. So let's do it.
Okay, so it's simple as that. So I think that like our time is up. Thanks a lot, Tony, for the discussion. Let's give like round of applause to Tony. And